They get up.
These three, I didn't tell everybody. I just came back. School this morning and I had to chase them out. It's like, oh, days. You know, days are slowing down, especially when everything goes into you're not.
They're shorter than it really starts flying. I had to laugh so hard almost right now.
So how's it coming out at the ranch?
What?
Is it?
There's no shortage of them, that's for sure. How are you? Tom, you in today? Alrighty, shall we get started? Call the 7/15th Great Falls International Airport Authority Board meeting to order. Stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do a quick roll call. Commissioner Fila. Here. Horwitz. Robinson. Here. Humboldt.
Here.
Waller. Here. Moran. Here. Mangan. Present. We got a real short agenda on both meetings today, so it's not going to take very long, and then we'll be out of here. This is my last meeting, and I'll have some comments probably at the end of the work session, so we don't have to get this done at a board meeting where I may not make it to the work session if I start. So, with that, the first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is made up of routine day-to-day items that may require board action but do not appear to have significant public impact. Items may be pulled from the consent agenda for separate discussion or vote by any board member. A, approval of board meeting minutes from 11/29. Payroll checks totaling $66,487. Maintenance and operations checks totaling $2,166,000. Approved passenger facility charge totaling $26,524. And approval of the airport advertising contract assignment. That last one concerns business that I have, so I'll be abstaining from the discussion and vote on the consent agenda. So with that, I will
Move for the adoption of the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Director's report.
Yes, well, happy December, everybody. We've got quite a few things we'll move through real quickly. We did receive our loading bridge. It's actually over the truck stop today. It'll be installed, we understand, by noon tomorrow, or around that time frame. So United will have that new loading bridge up and operational for the tail end of the holiday season as we get into the weekend. So we're real excited about that. The pad's already poured. The collar that we bolt the bridge to is already in place, and we should have everything done by midday tomorrow. So real exciting there. We also got our seats. You may recall we bought some seats from Salt Lake City. We got about 60 new seats. They're really nice ones. If you've been to Concourse E, you've seen them. There in Salt Lake. We got all those delivered for about $7,000, which is really inexpensive. Airport seating is extremely expensive, as any commercial seating is. But we're real excited about that. The whole room looks terrific, and real excited there. I just wanted to update you real quickly on the PFC issue. We mentioned last month the AAAE, which is our trade association, American Association of Airport Executives, put forward a couple of statements, made some testimony, all supporting removing the passenger facility charge cap. Currently, there's about a $12.50 cap, the maximum passenger facility charge can have, and it's $4.50 per airport, so you can't pay more than $12.50 for a whole ticket. The current proposal is to take that off. It's one of the ways they're talking about covering the gap in the AIP program. We, in reviewing that, objected to it with AAAE, and told them we thought there may be some better ways that could be done. The main idea is, or the main concern is if the passenger facility charge is allowed to be set by each individual airport, take a ticket from here to Florida, for example, where you might have 2 connections, over the years we could easily see a $60 or more increase on that ticket price when there's 2 airports, one on the connecting side, 2 on the connecting side, and then 1 on the destination side. That would be before we increased ours at all. So one of my suggestions with AAAE was that they involve more small airports in some type of conference call or a conference session. Our national conference is coming up in, I believe, March. And then my other suggestion was that maybe we consider just collecting PFCs at the origin airport or the originating ticket airport. That was one way I thought we could deal with that. So we would be responsible for setting our own destiny in terms of what we thought was fair, and other airports would too. We wouldn't share in the revenues as we do today. On the 1250, everybody kind of splits that up between the airports that are on the ticket. We would only get what originates here. People that come here from, say, Florida or somewhere else, we wouldn't get any of that money. But I think it's a fair way in the long run to manage those fees. So we did receive some thanks for the input type feedback. They're just now starting the discussion. So I told AAA, I spoke to them last month, that we would like to be involved in that and stay engaged in that. And I also talked to a number of the other Montana airports. That resulted in about 4 of us sending a letter to AAA, just noting these concerns about the pricing and the long-term effects of increasing the PFC. So we continue to work that issue. We'll probably continue to work around that issue over the next year. It's a fairly complex issue because it gets into the long-term funding of airports. Then it also touches on the lobbying efforts of the airlines versus lobbying efforts of the airports and what's in whose best interest. But we feel it's important to stay engaged in things like that could impact us locally, and so we will. The activity, I want to give a quick activity update. We received our November activity a couple of days ago now, and we now have gotten about up to 156,000 enplanements. The record for the airport's 163,000 enplanements. So we anticipate about halfway through this month, probably about now, or the next weekend or so, we'll set a record for the airport. We're anxious to see the year-end numbers, but so far it looks like we're up about 8% year-to-date. So a fantastic year for us in terms of activity, and I think a really good year for us in terms of revenue. We've seen good numbers. I think November was our 2nd best month ever of parking revenue. So we're seeing good statistics across the board. Anticipate December may well be our best month ever in terms of parking revenue. So we'll be anxious to see that at the end of the month. One other thing I was going to bring to your attention, this afternoon I received a letter, which I've given you all a copy of, from the Coalition to Protect the Rocky Mountain Front. I was contacted by them, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, and they were asking if the authority would be interested in supporting a study, an economic development study, as they say down about the 3rd paragraph there, economic analysis, I guess. To look at supporting that legislation. I don't know if you're familiar with it. I haven't actually read through the entirety of it, but I know it's something that I'm increasingly hear talked about. I think certainly as it pertains to the Bob Marshall and Glacier and some of the other areas on the Rocky Mountain front, we have a growing interest in tourism around those assets, both the hiking type of tourism, the sportsman type of tourism. And I think it is a valuable asset for our region in the long term in terms of driving tourism dollars. So I told the individual that I would give this letter to the board and see if there was any interest in taking on some type of recommendation letter or not over the next board meeting that we might consider sending back to them. Like I said, I haven't, just having been contacted by them, I haven't had a chance to research the actual wants and desires of this coalition. But the entry line of creating more recreation in the Rocky Mountain front sure sounded good. So I'll be anxious to study this more, and like I said, I did tell them I'd put this in front of the board and just see what the inclination of the board was to whether or not we would weigh in on something like this. So we can, I don't know if you want to open that up for discussion. And
I was going to say, I'm looking at JC.
I was waiting.
Yeah, we can certainly have discussion, but I think I'm still not sure exactly what they want.
Right.
Commissioner?
I haven't had an opportunity to read this whole letter yet, but I know Jerry Jennings, and she is a piece of work.
No, then we're not, don't go there. She's passionate about what she does. So, she's passionate about what she does. That's-
No lie. She is extremely environmental, and if she wants to open up tourism on the Rocky Mountain front, it's going to be only for the absolute physical fit to walk in and walk out, and there will be no drilling, no ranching, no oil exploration, no electricity power lines, no pipelines. There will be no snowmobiles, skiing, nothing. And without even knowing much about this, and not even knowing much about that coalition to protect the Rocky Mountain front, other than they are absolutely anti-development, I say no. Don't want to have anything to do with it.
I think we just need to look into what their beliefs are and where they want it to go.
Yeah, I don't think we know enough.
I don't even know what they want, other than if it's a letter of support to get a.
Well, they're asking for a letter of support down in, like I said, the fourth paragraph. They want to do a economic development project. Apparently, they already have the funding for it, to look at how the area can be used to for more public benefit. I told them, I'm not familiar with it. We'd have to research it, but certainly, we could ask them to come. Kind of what I had thought is maybe they could come in January and give us some type of presentation on what they're asking. And like I said, I do think anything that would support more recreation in the Rocky Mountain front could benefit our desires in terms of the tourism side of things. But not knowing enough about the organization to pass an opinion, I told them I'd pass the letter on and see if the board would be interested in a presentation or something at the January meeting.
I just want to say that this has been and again, I haven't read this thoroughly because I just got it, but the ideas from the coalition over time have been very well known. That it's a very political thing, and I'm not sure we want to get into politics, no matter what side of it you want to be on it. But it isn't a non-political thing. It's a very hot political football right now in many areas.
Okay.
And I guess my idea would be, without taking a side one way or the other, I'm not sure as an authority, airport authority board, that we want to get into politics. I think we want to stay away from politics.
Okay. So the inclination would be we would not be interested in taking in considering this, or even a presentation from these folks at this time?
I've sat through two of the presentations before, and it's honestly, I don't have any objection to the people, and nor necessarily what they want, but it is very political.
Okay.
And it's the politics I object to.
All right.
Further
Agree.
discussion?
All right, then, that's, I'll get in touch with them and let them know, at the current time, we're not interested in taking a position, and see where they go from there. But, okay, then on to the next issue. We, over the last couple of days, have received some information on the board appointments. Obviously, we have two positions that are opening up here fairly shortly. And the current policy that I guess was adopted in 2007 is that the board would make recommendations on the applications that we've received. The city, of course, can do whatever they choose to do. But the current policy that's out there is that we would make some sort of recommendation. As we've looked through the applications over the last couple of days, I think we just got them on, was it Tuesday or might have been Wednesday even. There's two open positions. We've received 4 applications, or the city's received 4 applications. Obviously, that's not a plethora of choices there. Our recommendation initially is that possibly it would be beneficial to advertise this one more time. I did receive a call today from one additional person who is interested in applying for the board. I told him I don't know what's going to happen at the current time. The deadline is passed to send in the application. I encourage them to call Joyce Thayers at the city and represent that they're interested. And then I told them we'd also be discussing it today at the board to determine what we would do. But our thinking, as we talked about this week, was it might make more sense to advertise one more time. I guess the last time around the same thing happened. It was advertised over Thanksgiving. A lot of people missed it. And then it was advertised again, and about 15 more applications came in. So we might try that. Our other suggestion was we might go ahead and recommend that some interviews start now because we do have some applications. And then the last thing I thought that might be helpful is maybe we could organize a committee of 2 board members that we might be able to meet next week for breakfast and formulate some recommendations to the city so they had at least some initial feedback on what we have already. And that's kind of the recommendation we'd come up with from the staff side was go ahead and advertise again. Let's start the interview process, and then next week maybe a couple board members and I could meet and make some recommendations based on what we've already received.
Do you have a comment on that?
Go ahead.
My comment on this, John, is when they started doing that, again, talking politics again, because it was very political at the time, and it was a in my opinion, it was a way that the former director thought they could control who was coming on. I think it's a bad idea, except from the point of view of looking and saying if there was an obvious conflict, or that we should come back and say none of these people, or one of these people, or 2 of these people, but usually none of these people present any kind of problems, because I think it's their job to come up with it, and I think a recommendation from here should never have been done, and it was abused. Several people on this board already know about that, and so I really think that the most effective, I like your idea of saying it doesn't look like there's enough people, you ought to maybe try and advertise it again. I like your idea of looking over the applications, and but I think the most we should say is there doesn't appear to be anybody on here that would be disqualified or present them.
And that's in a sense what the history of that, if I may, this all started when, 6 years ago today, in a sense, when Ray and I were appointed in the middle of that, and that policy came out of Ray and I working with the city over about 3 months to come up with a way that we could bridge what the director wanted and what the other board members wanted, and that's how that policy came about. And it's not necessarily it's there are guidelines of what how this board could assist in that process if that's what the city wanted, or the county. Obviously, the city still does their thing and the county still does their thing, but we certainly got away from, this person should be there or that person should be there. So with 4 people, exactly what Owen just said, I don't think anybody disqualified, is disqualified based on their application or merits, and but however this board wants to let the city know that we go with those recommendations, we certainly will. We don't have to do this, and they don't have to pick anybody until January 29th.
Right.
If I could just say one more thing before, remember last year when we were had incumbent board members and we were talking about telling the city or the county that we would recommend these same people, we kind of all agreed that wouldn't be a good policy to do that.
Right.
That we shouldn't, whether we liked our fellow guys or we all did at the time, that we didn't want to take a position on a particular person, and I think that's good.
Yeah.
I guess to offer a counterpoint, if I could, I think there's maybe 2 things I see missing from that point of view, and the first is I don't think the city is inherently aware of all of our dealings with people. You know, I mean, take the noise program, for example. They may not know some of the folks that, you know, that we deal with on that front. They probably don't know who all of our tenants are. They don't know our relationships with, with all of the folks in the community. And I think it's appropriate for us to disclose those to the extent they're not being disclosed in the materials that are provided by the candidate. Because otherwise, there's no way for them to know that. And then to further that, I do think it's helpful and important because, again, the city, us not being a city department, they're not involved in the operation of an airport in any sense or means. They don't know our capital program. They don't know what our needs are, what our business plans are, what our strategies are, in any great detail. And so I think it's helpful and important for us to relay to them, these are skill sets that are helpful and good and would be useful and reasons why we think that, experience might be good for us. And that's why I kind of like the way the policy was written in that it says explicitly the city can ignore us and do whatever they want. And I think that's entirely appropriate. But I also think it's appropriate for us to say, well, this skill set could be valuable. I mean, we talked a little bit about a CPA, even before we received applications, that could be a valuable position to have on the board.
Well, I think,
that type of,
yeah, well, I think what we don't want to happen is what happened. If the skill set and that kind of discussion, I think it's fine. I don't think anybody in the board is going to, would disagree letting either the county, depending on whether it's a city appointment or a county appointment, that this skill set is necessary. I think where the board, particularly this board, after living through it for a while, would be very hesitant to recommend, as like a strong recommendation for a specific individual. And I don't think that's what John and the staff is asking for. I think this board would certainly recommend, or suggest a skill set for policy that would be beneficial to the board, but we're certainly not going to be.
And I think once we got the process backed up a bit to say, we as a board would go through the applicants, try to determine if there was anyone who would not be capable, would be so conflicted that they were not capable of serving on this board from the experience that we had with the county lawsuit. And then that kind of backfired into complete vetting and ranking and actually selection here. And nobody wants to do that, so I think we want to just, and as we speak, having looked at the applicants, personally I don't find anybody to be conflicted. I did have a question on the residents of the one, and beyond that, it is up to the city and the county. I think by way of the meetings that we've moved to holding with the city and the county, and informational and sharing of what's going on at the over time, and certainly they changed commissioners as well, but I think over time they will come to have an understanding of what the strategic goals and what we're dealing with, so that they're much better equipped also to be able to say. But I don't think we want to make recommendations.
And we've started that process by last year inviting both the city and the county and having those kind of discussions and making them part of what we do so they understand it better and we understand what kind of questions they would have. We don't have, the county has until, I think, what's that last meeting in January 29th or something? What's the date? They will likely have 2 meetings before then.
You're saying city or county?
The city.
Yeah.
And since I think that's where the gist of it. I think it's a good idea to accept staff's recommendation that we suggest that they open it back up, given that they have until the day, that date to appoint a couple of folks. And that they may choose to do that. They may choose, like John said, to ignore it, but it might deepen the pool. And then I like the idea of appointing, that would give me one last thing to do, appointing a couple of members to take a look at working with the rest of the board on whether a recommendation or a suggestion of a skill set should be made or not, when it comes through. And that's kind of how we've worked really this last 2 years.
I don't have any problem with that.
And
That's great.
And I think that allows the board to work with staff, to interface with the city, or that local government, in this case the city, because I don't think we're going to have a problem with the county, on an appointment, communicate with the board, and allow the staff to get back to the city. Owen?
I did want to say one thing. At my little retirement function yesterday, one person did come up to me and asked if it was still open or not, and I told him to call Joyce, who he's very familiar with, and that person would be absolutely fantastic, and I suspect if it's not too late to get in there with the commissioners, reopen I suspect that's who they'll appoint anyway.
I don't think there's, the whole reason that we even have this discussion in the first place is because of the nightmare scenario that we went through on, in dealing with the lawsuit and those kind of things. So, we're all a little bit gun shy in a sense, but we've also shown this last couple of years that, when this board decides to take a look at an issue and work with our two local governments, it's been extremely beneficial, and only good things can come out of it. So, maybe if JC could work with Jim the next couple of weeks and take a look at that. JC, would you, and work with the staff and maybe just suggest at this point that they open it up if they choose to expand that pool, maybe they get a couple more folks, and just ensure that there are a couple of people seated by January 29th or whatever that date is. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds good.
I'll appoint Commissioners Moran and Torwitz to meet with staff and shepherd that process for the next 30 days. How's that? Any objection?
No, that's good.
Does that work?
That's great.
Good deal. Any other discussion on the director's report?
Well, I had one other item that I didn't quite get through.
Shoot.
Okay?
Yes.
All right. This is a kind of a fun one, but given that this is our last meeting and maybe the last part of the meeting, that we'll have two of our commissioners, we wanted to present a couple of special gifts.
This is great.
Provide some good money. It's a tradition in our industry, if you've ever had to govern or deal with the replacement of a runway, that you the rest of your life have to carry that burden. So, given that you both were involved in helping us get our runway replaced and the taxiway too, we've put these. We had the guys build these for you. Just to thank you for all your efforts over the last 6 years, and I know it's been at times challenging, but we think it's just a little memento and something fun that you can take with you. It actually works. It's got a switch on the cord and a heavy-duty switch, and you can change that light. That light will handle just about any wattage you want to put in there. So but we wanted to give you that and thank you for all the effort of the last 6 years. And we'll say some more at the Christmas party too. But we wanted to do that while we're all together here.
Nice.
That's great.
That's really great. John, this gives a whole new meaning to Blue Light Special.
That's right. Blue light special. You can put it anywhere in the house. Goes good with any decor.
That's very cool. And I'm sure Ray and I will have some comments here shortly too. So, that's the end of your director's report? That's pretty sneaky. The first item on the agenda, the only item on the agenda, is the Mang Joint Use Contract Indemnification.
As we presented last month, the folks at Mang have asked for a new indemnification clause. We've had it vetted through MIC, and we don't think it substantially changes the fact that they have indemnification. The general idea is they're out there performing things on our behalf in the life-saving business and using some of our equipment And to the extent that they have losses in that or would face any type of litigation, the authority agrees to indemnify them and hold them harmless from any litigation that we would generate from us. And to defend them in the sense that anything that we would be getting jointly in, we promise to defend them. So we don't think it substantially changes the intent of what was in the prior contract. And as we mentioned last month, we are recommending that we go ahead and amend the lease to accept the new indemnification language.
You'll entertain a motion?
So moved.
And a second? Any discussion?
John, it's the same thing we talked about last time in the work session.
It is, same language.
Didn't change the language. And it was reviewed by Mick?
It was.
Got our legal review, went through Mang's legal review, obviously they're the ones that suggest the change. Have any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, any public or any airport authority board comments? Joseph?
No, Mr. Chairman.
JC?
Not a thing.
Owen?
Well, I guess save a lot of this for the Christmas party, but I do want to thank Jeff and Ray for their service on our airport authority board. It was quite a time. We went through an awful lot, and particularly before I got there, but afterwards. And I just want you to know that as not a representative of the board, but of the community, I want to thank you both for your great service to this community.
I would echo that and thank you for your sincere leadership. And I miss you.
Ray, or Jim, and then I'll go to Ray.
Well, I obviously echo both Susan and Owen, and it's been a privilege for me to get acquainted with you, Jeff, because until serving on this board, I had not known you or Ray. And I can't think of two finer people to represent the airport authority and the community. I think you both have done an outstanding job, and Jeff, your leadership has been absolutely tremendous. You've been fair, you've been, I think Susan has the right word, sincere, and the integrity that you've exhibited in some difficult situations has been very honorable. And I just appreciate all that you have done to get us to the point that we're at. And I think you should, both of you should take satisfaction going on a very high note. I think it's a very high note for the airport authority. And much of that is due to your leadership, Jeff.
Thank you, Jim. Raymond?
It's been a journey. And there were times I wondered whether it was worth taking. But in the end, I'm extremely pleased with where the airport is today, the board, and the growth that we see, and the changes that have been made and are being made. And my hat is off to Jeff. I mean, he carried the brunt over this last 6 years. And it takes a very, very special, talented, and dedicated person to do what Jeff did. So Jeff, thank you. And thank all of you.
Thank you, Ray. I was going to wait till the work session, I'll do it now, I guess. So I'm going to start, I want to thank Mike for coming today. And when we first started this years ago, one of our first big discussion points and one of my big decisions that I had to make was whether or not Mike should be able to buy that FBO over there. And so I remember that, vividly. So it's kind of nice to see Mike back on my last meetings. And Lloyd and Roxanne, you guys have just been, wonderful stewards for the airport, and it's nice to always look out and see your faces and know that we'll get some genuine feedback, and that even though the stuff is somewhat boring, After month after month, and
Seriously.
it's nice. I've known Peter for a long time, and before, I was glad to see that he was put on the business beat and took that over, or at least that part for the airport. So it's always nice to chat with Peter, and he does an excellent job for the Tribune. We have to wait till the Christmas party. I just think it says a lot about the people we work with when it comes to an end of a journey like this. And I'm choked up, and Ray was choked up, because we care about the people we serve with. It's more than a job, it's more than a public service. We enjoy doing it. At times we loathe doing some of those things, but it's always nice to come and see and work side by side people you respect, that you get to know as colleagues and friends, and kind of have these lifelong, end up probably having a lifelong friendship with. And I don't think, other than when I started, other than Owen and Joe, who came on after I did, I'd never met Susan, I'd never met Ray, never met Jim, certainly never met JC, knew of him. And we had different backgrounds, but I think we came and we were able to work together and put political differences and other kind of differences aside and do the work that needed to be done. And nothing was more pressing than some of the things that we went through the last few years. So to say it's been an honor to work with this group of people is truly an understatement, because I just couldn't ask for a better group of people to work with. And I look on this side of the table, and this is one of the things I never wanted. When I was chair, I was going to say, I'm not going to have staff on this side and board on this side, because I always thought it was kind of, that it's never got changed. Now, these three people on this side of the table have been here since Ray and I, started. They've been here for a long time, and that consistency and dedication to their jobs and the airport in this community is, you don't see that in many professions. It was one of those things when I was working through some of the difficult challenges is, working with the staff and making sure that they understood that we respected and appreciated every bit of work that they did, and just crossing our fingers that they didn't think that we were in any way, not appreciative of their job and their duties, and hopefully any of the stuff that we had to go through didn't come across as personal or otherwise. And then John has just been, a true find, and we were very lucky that he was able to be in a position in his life to take a look at this airport, and have the ability to kind of uproot his family and move to this community. And it certainly made my job a lot easier the last couple of years, year and a half. And I just hope that this airport has John and the staff around for a long, long time. And the community and the airport are well served with their dedication and their love of their jobs. And some of the stuff, I don't think if they didn't love their job, I don't think they'd still be here. So we appreciate it. And I'll leave it more for the Christmas party, but have some special things for Jim maybe later, so. With that, any public comments? I don't want to forget public comment.
Hate to see you go.
I'm not going to go too long. I'm going to continue to work. But thank you. Seeing none, no more public comments, we will adjourn the board meeting, and we need to take a break, so we go into the work session.
Mr. Chairman,
Peter?
I would really appreciate if you take about a 5-minute break. I need to be somewhere after this too, if that's okay. So you take your normal 5-minute break or
Oh, you
something.
bet.
Thank you.
We will take a 5-minute break.
Peter.
You like it? Oh, thank you.
I think that is just terrific.